All right. So thank you both so much for hopping on today. My name is Jamie Trujillo, and I will be talking about Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Forms as just an introduction, a very basic introduction. So um, thank you so much again. You guys know who I am. And then Mariah Guillen is going to be moderating for me today. She did have to step away for a second, but she'll be right back. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and she can either, you know, just jump in and ask me the question or she can answer them for you. So we are going to start with a poll. And so the question is, which of the following G Suite apps are you most comfortable using? And I have to apologize because my poll disappeared, so I'm bringing it back up. And it'll just take me a second. All right. So there we go. The poll has been launched. You should have gotten a little pop-up that says that there's a poll. So go ahead and go to that and just choose one of those. Which app are you most comfortable using? Oh, looks like Docs, like unanimous Docs. And you know, Docs is probably the most simple of the Google apps to use. So that's not very surprising. And we will talk about those, of course, first, and then move on to the other ones. So first off, Google Docs. I think that really Google Docs was the first G Suite app I ever used. And I am a big fan of Microsoft Office. So, but you know, back before I had free access to Microsoft Office, I was always looking for free alternatives. And when G Suite came out with all of these Google apps, I was very excited. And like I said, Google Docs was really the first one I used. And it is very similar to Microsoft Word. It's almost identical. In fact, they have come out with even more integrations to or with Microsoft Word to make it more compatible. It's not perfectly compatible when you're trying to convert between the two, but it's very, very similar. So it is a word processing app. It's something that you use. It's like having a blank sheet of paper, and you have, you know, your draft document or your document to put on there. So it's very useful in the classroom for things like essay writing, journaling. I have a teacher who really loves using Google Docs for essay writing because, and I'll get more into this in a little bit, it's shareable. So a student can complete their assignment. This can be easily integrated into Google Classroom. The student completes the assignment and then the teacher can make comments, make edits, all of that all together without having to worry about printing and redoing and things like that. Same thing with journaling. So any kind of a free write activity you can use Google Docs for. You can also administratively use Google Docs for things like meeting agendas or meeting notes. I use Google Docs all the time for that. For the most part, I've pretty much given up using Microsoft Word for things like that because it's just so easy to keep those agendas in Google Drive. So that is just a really quick introduction to Google Docs.
One of
And
the
then
things that
uh-huh,
we talked about in our meeting yesterday was with Google Docs, it saves it automatically compared to Microsoft Word. So
yes,
that's what's good about it.
yes. It saves, I believe, every 3 seconds. And so you don't have to worry about losing anything. If worst case, if the power goes out and you get kicked off the internet or something like that, you might lose a word or two. You're not going to lose the entire thing if you didn't save it. So that is a very, very good point. And that is true of all Google apps, whether it's Docs, Sheets, Slides, even Forms. It is saved every 3 seconds. And one of the new features that they have out, and it's relatively new, so maybe in the past year or two, is the ability to save it offline. So one of my concerns whenever I was using G Suite was whether or not I would have good internet connectivity. And now you don't have to. You can choose to give it offline permissions. And you do have to, I'll show you how to do that in a little bit, but you do have to actually go in and physically do that. But then you can edit it while you're offline. And as soon as you get back to an internet connection, those changes will save, which is really cool. So the next is Google Sheets, which is similar to Microsoft Excel. So it is a spreadsheet app, very useful for numbers. It is useful for things like attendance sheets. All of my teachers keep their attendance sheets in Google Sheets. And then the data tech has instant access to those attendance sheets and can put the attendance into the database, into LACES, which is really convenient. You can also use them for performance reports. As a program director, I require my instructors to provide me with a class performance report every 6 weeks. And it includes things like the class roster list, and it gives the information of how many hours the student has, what their status is, whether they're left or enrolled or completed, um, if they, or how many hours they have, if they made a level gain or not, if they've taken a post test or not. And so all of that information is saved in Google Sheets every single term. And I can go into Google Drive and I can access these at any time and go back and see the progression from term to term for each teacher. Um, in the classroom, you can also use, and administratively as well, you can use Google Sheets for scheduling appointments. I have teachers who want to schedule appointments for their students to come in and take a post test, for example, or they want to have an individual meeting with their teacher. They can just put their name in that spot. Google Calendar also has an appointments feature. What we've been finding is that students sometimes have a hard time using the appointments feature, and because they're used to using Google Sheets, it's easier for them to just go into the sheet and put their name in an available spot. And finally, any kind of student data. It doesn't have to be attendance or performance. It could be anything. Any kind of student data you can use Google Sheets for. So what I like is that more and more and more of Excel features are being used in Google Sheets. It was a lot simpler when it first came out. There were a lot of functionality limitations with Google Sheets that you don't really see anymore, as opposed to Microsoft Excel. So I love Google Sheets. I love using Google Sheets for pretty much anything, as opposed to, for example, putting a table into Google Docs. I will just put it into a spreadsheet. And Ron, I definitely appreciate you hopping in with the Google Docs. So at any point, if either of you have anything to add or questions you would like to ask, please, just jump in.
Okay. So we use Google Sheets too for our attendance sheets.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and
Yeah.
so what we have, we used to do laces, but we don't do laces anymore. But we did the attendance sheets, and the case workers now have access to see what their participants are doing in our class,
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
much time they put in.
And so, yeah, what's really great about that is they could see it at any time, right? So you don't have to worry
Yes.
about sending it via email, or did I remember to email the case manager the attendance sheets? No, it's right there. And they can go in and they don't even have to worry, okay, where can I find the attendance sheet from 3 weeks ago? They have
Well, we
that.
used to, we used to have to fill out the timesheets for our students, but
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm-hmm.
the caseworkers can look at the attendance sheet and they could see the hours that the students put in, and they can do it themselves or the students do it with them.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. It's so much easier. So much easier. And I will actually talk in a little bit about how Google Forms and Google Sheets can work together for that as well. We don't use Google Forms for our attendance sheets anymore, but I'll talk about how we used to. Um, but yeah, I just love Google Sheets. And by the way, I did notice that two other people came on. So welcome, Nancy and Samuel. Welcome. We're just at, oh, it looks like we got somebody else wanting admission. So yeah, we're just looking at, we looked at Google Docs already. Now we're going to be moving on to Google Sheets. So welcome, Samuel. All right, moving on to Google Slides. Um, Also similar to a Microsoft product, similar to PowerPoint. But I actually liked Google Slides a lot better than PowerPoint. For some reason, I just find it to be much more visually pleasing and easier to use. It seems to me that Slides is just simpler. So it is a presentation app. So it's what my presentation is on right now. This is a Google Slides presentation. And so you can use it in the classroom when you are doing a lecture. You can create a presentation ahead of time and have that information ready. You can even gamify your lessons this way. I have seen templates for Jeopardy, for example, using Google Slides, which is super fun. Even Family Feud. It's a little bit more complicated to set those up, but once you have it set up, it's ready for you, and you can just modify it as you need it, which is really fun. Another way that I have seen Google Slides used in the classroom is for shared class projects. I really, really love this. I had a teacher about a year and a half ago when he first started with his class. So these were all new students. They were getting to know each other for the first time. Every student had their own slide. So he gave each student a slide number and he said, okay, on your slide, I want you to put your name and then you can add text or images that either describe you or something that you love. You know, maybe you're into a certain type of music, or maybe you really love to ski or something like that. Find images that really show who you are as a person and put that in the slide. And so everybody was just in charge of that one slide. And when they were done, boom, there was a whole slideshow of everybody from the class introducing themselves to each other. And it was always there. And once again, it saves automatically, which makes it so fun. It's a really interactive and yet low risk way to introduce yourself to a group. I can't tell you how many times I've said, we're going to do an icebreaker and everybody's going to go around the room and they're going to share this. And, I can almost see the, groans, even though you can't see it. It's like, it's almost there. But with this, you don't really have to do that. And by the time they're done, they're almost excited to share what they created with their slides. So I really love that idea of just using Google Slides for shared class projects. Another way that I've heard of, although I haven't myself done this with Google Slides, is to create an ebook. A Google slide presentation can be shared right away as a PDF. And so you can turn a slide into a book page. And so every slide would just be a page in a book. And this could be something that you create as something to, email to your students or have the, print out for your students, or it's something that your students can create. It can be something that they build together and then they have, it's tangible. And it can be as simple or as complicated as you want. It could be, the sky's the limit when it comes to creating that. So that's just another idea of how you can use Google Slides in your classroom. And of course for trainings. I know I don't have it listed on here, but I'm doing a training right now. I'm doing a webinar. I'm using Google Slides. You can always use Google Slides for that. And finally, we have Google Forms. And I think of all the apps, Google Forms is the most complicated, but at the same time, it is so very fun. I love Google Forms. It is a survey administration app, kind of similar to SurveyMonkey or, all those other, survey platforms that you might receive an email asking you to answer a quick survey. So these are very useful for class surveys. Sometimes we want to survey our students on what kind of, for example, for our program, what kind of career pathways workshops would you like to see? What kind of field trips would you like to go on this year? So you can complete a needs assessment for your students using Google Forms. But one of the coolest features in Google Forms for instructors is that you can turn any form into a quiz. And that quiz can be automatically graded, which is super cool and a great time saver. You can turn a HiSET practice test into a Google Forms quiz. You can make your own quiz and just have multiple choice or even fill in the blank. And with the quizzes, and I'll show you this, you just set up your answer key and then it gets graded automatically. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the webinar that we used to use Google Forms for our attendance sheets. So what we had, it was very simple. It was just 3 questions: last name, first name, and then sign in or sign out. And they chose. It was just a multiple choice: sign in or sign out. So when they walked into class, they put in their first name, last name, and then sign in, sign out. And then when they left, they did the same thing. And the reason why we used it this way is because Google Forms are time stamped. So when you submit an answer, a response, it is time stamped. And when you look at your responses in Google Sheets, we could see when they signed in and when they signed out. And so our data tech had access to these sign ins and sign outs automatically. And she would use that time to create the number of hours. It was seriously to the second the most accurate attendance sheet you could possibly have, as long as they did it right, as long as the students remembered to sign in and sign out. And then with COVID, because everything went online, we went away from that, just because it was harder to keep track of the accuracy of that, and we just went right to Google Sheets. But you can definitely do that for your in-person classes. We also had teachers who did use this in a virtual environment as a time clock. So if a student was self-reporting their time, they could say for example they were going to get on essential ed, or not essential ed, I'm so sorry, not essential ed, Google Classroom. So Google Classroom does not track your time. Essential ed does. So Google Classroom doesn't track your time. They want to work on a Google Classroom assignment, they could go in and to their Google form and then sign in, and then when they're done working they sign out, and that is a way of tracking time. So you can also do that virtually, and we, like I said, we had teachers that did that. And then just one other suggestion is things like potluck signups. I don't know if your classes have potlucks or parties or anything like that. We have gone back to having those. And so we could always just do a really quick potluck sign up to see who's bringing what. And then it's just really easy to see. So these are just some examples of how to use Google Forms, but there are just so many different ways of using Google Forms. And I'm actually curious if any of you have used Google Forms, and if so, how are you using Google Forms with your program?
We use them for our high set practice tests.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we had somebody set those up for us for the high set practice test,
Yep. So do we.
and
We
then
definitely do
quizzes
that
too.
as well. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And like I said, quizzes are pretty easy. So all of these apps have very important things in common. The most important being they're all free. They're absolutely free to use at any point. And they're available to anyone with a Google account. Google accounts are free. So that makes it very easy, very accessible. The other thing is
Sorry, Jamie, my sound went out. I can't hear you. Does anybody else hear
It
Jamie?
was actually not you, Samuel. It was
Oh,
me.
okay.
For some reason, my headset went on mute, so I apologize, everybody. That was me. My.
No worries.
I'll also apologize if you hear my dogs barking. That's why I had my headset on. So if you hear my dogs barking, I am sorry. They're barkers. So going back to what I was talking about, um, every one of these apps has templates that are already created that you have access to. So you do not have to reinvent the wheel. They're available for you, and I'll show you how to access those. They're also shareable. Every single one of them is shareable, which means you and your students can be working simultaneously. I know that before G Suite came out, before all these apps came out, if my executive director and I were working on a grant proposal, we had to email each other these long Word documents back and forth. And we had to make sure that we weren't working at the same time, because then changes could get lost. We had to wait until the other person was done. Now we don't have to do that anymore. We can have a shared Google Doc that we can both be working in at the same time, and both changes get saved. And that's so, so nice. They're also all housed in Google Drive. So they're in the cloud. You don't have to worry about losing them. You have to physically delete them in order to get rid of them. It doesn't matter if you have a power surge or a power outage or your computer falls off of a 10-story building. It does not matter. It is still there. So that makes these so wonderful in so many ways. So let's check these out. I'm going to actually get out of my presentation for a second, and we're going to go to www.google.com. Now, you are absolutely welcome to stay looking at my shared screen, or you can go to a different window on your end and just follow along with my voice if you choose. Either way is fine. But we're going to go to google.com. So here I am. It's just the regular Google homepage. There are a couple of ways that you can access these apps. The first is through the app menu, which looks like a Rubik's Cube right over here. It's the 3 dots. You click there, all your apps are right here. So you can see Docs, Sheets, Slides, Forms, plus all the other Google Docs. There are so many, or Google Apps, I'm sorry, not Docs, Google Apps. So I could go to Docs from right here, for example. Now, if I were to go to Google Docs, you will see, and this is true for Sheets and Slides as well, you can always start a blank file, or here's some recommended templates that they have, and then you can have your template gallery. There's also your recent documents, so you can also go to those as well. But if I were to go to the template gallery, I can see that there are templates that are already made. And because this is an NMDelt account, there are shared templates with the NMDelt domain. So there are some shared saved templates here, and you can also submit a template if you like, or you can go to the general templates. And as you can see with Docs, there are so many general templates that you can use. I have used the resume templates many, many times with my students, and so have a lot of my teachers. So you can always go with those templates, or you can just start a blank document. So if you want to start a blank document, you just click there, and there you have it. So this looks, even just in look, looks very, very similar to Microsoft Word. So it should be very easy for you to look at. One difference, or there's a few differences, but one of the differences is that you can have an outline show up over here on the left. So if you're working with a large document, that outline is automatically made for you, which is really nice. So you can toggle between sections in your document. You can also share, and I'm going to get into the sharing settings in a little bit. I'm not going to go there just yet, but you can do that. You can also, of course, use all the features right here that Word has. So that's one way to access a Google app, is using that apps menu. Another way is by typing in the name of the app, .google.com. So I'll go to Sheets this time. I can just go to sheets.google.com. You can see that right there. And it'll take me to my Sheets page. As you can see, very similar look to Docs. I can start a blank sheet. I can go to the template gallery. I have my general and my NMDelt templates. And I can look at my recent work. So if I hit a blank sheet, there you go. Looks just like Google, or it looks like Microsoft Excel. And you'll notice that they're always untitled, but I can guarantee you that in my Google Drive, it's already saved. I haven't done anything with it, but it's already saved because it exists. So I can rename it. I can say this is my test sheet, and then that's going to save, and it will be in my Google Drive. And I'll show you how to get to that later. So those are the ways that you can access your apps. Now, I could be in Gmail, for example. If I were to go into Gmail, you'll see that my apps menu is right there at the top. So it doesn't have to just be Google. You can access it right through Gmail, and you can go to your apps menu, and then you can pull that up. And as you can see, there you go. Slides, also very similar. You can have a blank one, you have your recent ones, and you have your template gallery. So, and forms. I'm going to go to forms real quickly, and then I'll open it up for you guys to tell me where you want to go. But here you go. You can see forms. and the difference here is that you can either do a blank form or a blank quiz. You can already set it up as a quiz right from the beginning. Now, if you set it up as a form to begin with, you can always change it to a quiz in the settings later on. So you don't have to start it off as a quiz. Don't worry about messing it up if you forget to do that. So I just want to give you guys an opportunity to tell me what you want to look at. And I am going to go over sharing and commenting here in a little bit. But other than that, is there anything you wanted to look at?
For my own personal interest,
Mhm.
you said something that was interesting to me earlier, but maybe not necessarily. Actually, it can be applied to what I'm doing as a teacher. The aspect of using Google Slides and turning it into a book form
Mhm.
would be really useful for some of my students. It would be useful for my son, who's 13 now, and he's writing children's books,
Yes.
age appropriate for him. And I think that would be a really great way for him to take his drawings and illustrations and put them in with words. And I'm thinking about how that could be a really great assignment in adult education. How,
Yes.
I can see how yeah, yeah. So my brain is working, but
Yeah.
that's as far as I processed it.
There's really a lot of potential when you think about just the concept of an ebook, because really it's just a matter of, okay, this is my ebook, right?
Uh-huh.
And you can pick a
Well,
theme.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I would like to invite you all just to check out Slides Carnival. And I know that's a little bit of a digression, but if you go to slidescarnival.com, and I can put that in the chat here in a little bit, it has a ton of slides, themes, and templates, and you can either download it for PowerPoint or for Google Slides. And for
Yeah.
some reason, it doesn't want to pull up right now.
That's all
Not
right.
sure why. I didn't.
Well,
Let's just put
I'm
it.
thinking that could be a great application for all the fun kid-like ways that I teach certain math concepts, such
Mhm.
as teaching integers on a number line. I
Yep.
have this thing called Fatima's Flan Factory, where she borrows money from the bank and it goes negative, and then she makes the money back when she sells her flan. Then it goes positive.
Mhm.
So it could be kind of fun to make an assignment like that, understanding integers through flan.
Absolutely. You can have each student work on a particular problem in a slide, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
show how they
right.
do that. And once you're done, so I'm just going to add a couple of slides here. So page 1, however you want to do that. I'm going to add, oops, let me just add another slide there. Page 2. So once you have a few pages, of course, an ebook will probably be more than this. You go to File, and then you go to Download as a PDF. When you've downloaded it as a PDF, you'll have all these PDF pages. There is a website that can convert it into an EPUB, which is literally an ebook file, .epub. And so I do not have that website offhand. It's something that's kind of new to me, but you can do that for free. You just convert a PDF to an EPUB, and then rather than having to scroll through the pages, it turns the page like an ebook would,
Nice. And this could work in the classroom setting if you have enough computers for each person. Would they be able to work on this document all together at the same time, like as if you shared a Google Doc? You share that document with other people and everybody can edit it at the same time?
Yes.
Would I be able to have all my students work on a separate page of the same document at the same time?
Yes. Now, one thing I would caution you all, whenever you're sharing, whether it's a doc, a sheet, slide, doesn't matter. When you're sharing something that is being worked on all at the same time, what I would recommend is to make sure that your students understand that they can also delete other people's work. And they don't want to do that by accident. Doc all at the same time can be a little difficult
Right.
because you're seeing words move and disappear and all of that stuff. With slides, what I would recommend is set up all your slides. So say you have 10 students. Well, you'll have your title slide, and then you'll already have set up 11 slides. And then you give them a number and you say, okay, you know, Bob, you're going to be on slide 3, and Shelly, you're going to be on slide 6. And those are the ones that they only work on. So if I had a bunch of people on at the same time, I would actually see their icons right up here at the top. And then over here on the side, I could see who is on what slide. Their icon will pop up and I can see who is on what slide. And so you as a teacher can then monitor that from your computer and make sure that people are all on the right slide. And then you can see the changes that they're making in real time.
Right. Okay.
One of the things you mentioned about stuff popping up on those slides or docs, because we have this on docs, I give them a blank like hours document sheet to fill out for themselves. And if they don't make a copy of it, you'll see somebody's information right there, and somebody else can see it too. So I tell them to always go to file and make a copy of it first before they work on it.
Yes, that's a very important skill, for lack of a better word, for you to really get your students used to. If they're going to be working on the same template but a different sheet for each person or a different doc for each person, get them used to making a copy. That's really important. The other thing that's also really important, or I shouldn't say important, it's really useful, is that Google Classroom will allow you to have a setting in an assignment to where each student will automatically get their own copy. So no student will have access to their peers' copies.
Do you know how to do that?
You can give them a shared one.
Can you show us how to do that?
Yes, I can. So just like any other app, let's see, let's just go to, oh, look, there's Slides Carnival. So you can see here, Slides Carnival looks like that. You can find a ton, just a ton of really cool templates. So let's go to our apps again, and let's go to Google Classroom. So you can go there, or you can go to classroom.google.com. Either one is fine. So let me just go into, I'm going to go into this one. It's an old classroom. Okay. So if I were to want to create an assignment in Google Classroom, I could go to my classwork, and then I could go to create, and you create an assignment. Okay. So when you are attaching a Google Drive file, I'm going to add a doc, for example, if it will bring them up. Okay, so let me see if I can find a doc. Here's a doc. Okay, so here's a doc that I want to attach. So I click on it, I hit insert. Now this is very important because you can only do this when you set up the assignment. You cannot edit the assignment and do this after the fact. Here over on the right, you have this drop down. It is defaulted to students can view the file, meaning they can't change it. They can only look at it. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you just want them to read something. But you also have the option for students to edit the file or to make a copy for each student. And this is what I use most of the time, make a copy for each student, because then each student has their own editable copy. They can't see each other's, and you can see all of them, and they get automatically saved into Google Drive. So that's how you do that.
That's good. Thank you. I never did that. So maybe I'll do the same,
So this can help because then it just makes a copy for each student automatically. You don't have to have them do that.
Can I ask a question? Samuel, where are you at?
I am in Albuquerque at the Mesa Verde Community Center, or through ABQ, Adult Learning Center.
Yeah, he's with my program.
Okay, and Lorraine? What about Lorraine?
Oh, you're muted, Lorraine.
Oh, I can't hear you, Lorraine.
Lorraine, you're still muted.
Sorry, I'm with YDI for the Adult Basic Ed program that just started in October, and I'm off of Candelaria and Carlisle.
Oh, okay. And Nancy, Red House, I think I know you. You used to work at San Juan College, is that correct?
You're also muted, Nancy.
That's correct, Ron. This is that Nancy Red House.
Yeah, I used to work with Nancy at San Juan College. So,
Yeah,
Where you
I'm at the Ney College here in Shiprock.
Oh,
Nice.
so it looks like all of us are in Albuquerque with the exception of Nancy and Mariah. Mariah's in Clovis.
Right, I'm at the uh, northwest corner of New Mexico here.
I used to be up there with Nancy in Farmington. I worked at San Juan College for a couple of years.
Nice.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Excellent.
And Ronald, where are you now?
I'm in Albuquerque now. I work for ACE, the adult ed in Albuquerque.
Right on. Lorraine, I used to have your job, and then I switched over to this company. So, yeah.
And
You know,
Raul,
we always move back and forth with YDI. One contract ends, you go to another program.
Right.
Back and forth. I think this is my 5th time back.
Nice.
great. And yeah, Raul is with Ron for ACE. So also in Albuquerque, right, Raul?
Yeah, also in Albuquerque.
Great. So really quickly, because it is already 12:40, I wanted to go back to my presentation for just a second and go to this slide right here. So let me go back to my slideshow.
Yeah,
And
keep going out because I'm eating lunch here.
oh yeah, you can keep yourself muted, no problem. So I wanted to talk about the sharing feature because we've been talking about it quite a few times already. Just wondering, okay, how can I share this with my students? So all apps share in a very similar fashion. You can see the buttons look very similar. What I love also about Google is it's completely color coded. So Docs is blue, Sheets is green, Slides is yellow, Forms is purple. And so with the exception of Forms, you'll see a share button on the top right of your screen. I did show that when I was in Google Docs. And when you click on that, you have two options. You can either share directly with folks via email, so you can choose who you want to share it with. So if you have a class list, you already have their email addresses, you can share it with them, or you can share it with just one person. Or you can share a link. So you can email a link to everybody, and that link will take them to the form or the doc or the sheet. And one thing about that, about the link sharing, is that, and this is true even if you share via email, you can choose the sharing permission. So you can either give them view access. View only means they cannot make changes to it. You can give them access to comment, or you can give them edit access, which is the full access. So there are 3 levels of access that you can give them. So Forms works a little bit differently because you're sending a form for people to fill out. So instead of share, you'll see the send button, and the send button will either allow you to send it directly via email. You can put in email addresses, or you can share a link. So that is how it works similarly to the other apps. But that is for filling out the survey. That is not for editing the survey. If you want to add other people to your form so that they can edit the survey, you go to add collaborators. So I'm going to once again escape out of here. I'm going to go to Google Forms really quickly, and I'm just going to pull up a form here. So like I mentioned, you can send the form. So you can either put in the email addresses, or you can go here to get a link. You can also embed forms into your websites. So this is your embed HTML code. You can do that, but that gets a little bit more complicated. So again, this is sending the form for people to fill out. But if you want to add collaborators, just go to your more option, which is always this, these 3 vertical dots, and you can add collaborators. And this is where you get the very similar sharing settings that you get in the other apps. So you can add people directly, or you can get a link. This is where you change your sharing settings. And this is true for all apps. You can go to change here. You can restrict it. You can choose anybody in your domain if you have a domain, or you can do anyone with the link. Now, if you do that, you can change it to, in this case, it's just an editor. There's no view option in Forms. If I were to do this in, for example, Sheets, so here I'm in that share option, it does default to restricted. If I were to change that there, I can change it to anyone with the link, and I can make them a viewer, commenter, or editor. So those are your sharing options. Did somebody have a question? I think somebody had unmuted. I just wanted to make sure. No? Okay. So that's the sharing. The other thing I wanted to show you is commenting. So every app, with the exception of Forms, has this comment icon here at the top. You can see here, it's also in Docs. So you can, if there was actual text, like, okay, I have my text here. If I wanted to comment on something that maybe didn't make sense, I could just highlight it and I can comment right from there. Once you highlight something, you can add a comment. If you don't have anything highlighted, you could just go to add a comment. This is actually where you can see the comments. I take that back. I'm so sorry. You highlight it and then you add a comment, and then the comment will show up once you click on the highlighted text. And you can respond to other people's comments as well. So if you have a student who creates an essay and you don't want to change what they wrote, you can always make comments on what they wrote. And then they can ask you questions about your comment. They can make the change and then you can resolve the comment. Anybody can resolve the comment, which means that it's been taken care of. But that's another feature that is true for all of these apps. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that because it's very useful in the classroom. So to wrap up, what is just one new thing that you want to try with any of these apps? And this is where I want you to go into the chat, which is, if you look at the bottom right of your screen, you can see it. It looks identical to the comment icon in the apps. Go to your chat and just type in one thing that you want to try with any of these apps. And I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to respond. And you can unmute as well. We do have kind of a small group, so you can also unmute. Breakout rooms. And so, when we talk about Google Meet, which we don't have one scheduled right now, but when we do have a webinar on Google Meet, that's definitely something to talk about. Yeah, Forms is fun, Raul. I got to tell you, I love playing around with Forms, just trying it out. And just like with Meet, we don't have any Google Forms webinars scheduled right now, but I have offered beginning, intermediate, and advanced Google Forms. So I'll do that again, probably in the next fiscal year. I knew it, Samuel. I knew you were going to do that. That's awesome. I love that you want to experiment with Google Slides for ebooks and maybe using it in your classroom. I love that.
I think it might be a fun little thing to experiment. I have one student who wants to go on to become a writer and study English. So I might have her use that to, do a poetry book.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be really great. And Ron, hopefully you'll find that this is a really great way to share Google Docs, within Google Classroom and having each student make a copy. I love that you want to try that out. It really saves a lot of time and possibly frustration when somebody forgets to make a copy.
Do we have time for a question? Oh
yes.
There. I must be psychic.
Yes.
Okay.
Questions?
Well, kind of, I don't know if it's off topic or not, but my next step in the pedagogy of teaching essay writing is one of the things I began to notice is that if I help them write the first essay and we all do it together and I run through idea maps, the 5 paragraphs, thesis statement, we write it out, it kind of works better because vicariously the people get an idea, oh, okay, this is how it gets put together. That's how you put together an essay. So one of the things I really want to do is have an essay writing class right at the very beginning where we take a topic and then I can have everybody in the classroom working on computers. We share some kind of a Google Doc so that everybody can edit at the same time so that they're watching me input the information and then I invite them to help edit it.
Mhm.
And so for that hour that we're working on how to build an essay, we're all looking at the same document as it's being built at the same time, and each student is giving their input. And then I encourage them to write on that Google document so that finally they're dipping the toe in. And so cognitively learning the theory of how to do an essay is one thing, but watching how it's done in real time, that's totally different. That's
Yes.
another level of learning. So I was just going to throw that out there. That's what I'm kind of thinking about right now, how to teach essay writing and speeding up that process for people. Any suggestions from you or anybody along those lines?
And I would definitely love to open it up to anybody that's done essay, like collective essay writing with their class with Google Docs. One thing that I would recommend if you're using a shared doc is to create a table within that doc. So you have your introduction, and you can even put it like that: introduction,
Yeah.
body paragraph, and
Yes.
then conclusion. And then maybe you have 2 or 3 students working on each part, so
Right.
that they're not messing with each other's paragraphs.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Yes.
then you take that and you just put it in paragraph form at that point.
And then you could also do it like she said, with 2 or 3 students working on it, like in breakout rooms too.
Oh
Yes,
yeah. Yeah.
you definitely could do that. And just to add to that, you can have a 3-column table where you have the labels, introduction, body, conclusion. Second column is just your bullets, your notes. This is what I want to include. And then the third column, complete sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And have them go from one step to another.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer in modeling as a best practice. And so having them watch you do it first is really great. Having them help you with it is a great second step. And then finally, having them work alone is, a third step where they would just write their own. And when you're consistent about a format and they get practice with that, I have found that it's super, super easy, no matter what the topic is, for them to get a passing essay score.
Yes.
You focus on the format more than the topic.
Yes.
Yes, it's important to stay on topic. It's very important to stay on topic. But
Right.
if they get that format down, then they can really concentrate on
Right.
making sure.
Maybe like a checklist, did I include in
Yes.
quotations? Did I paraphrase? Did I, all these wonderful things that score you bonus points on the written essay test. Yeah.
Yep. First thing in the checklist, did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Do I have a clear thesis statement, in other words, but, did I answer the question? So, I really love the potential with Google apps, all of them, to work collaboratively, whether it's with essay writing or math or anything else, science, social studies. And Samuel, I can tell you, Karina is really good about doing this with science. So you can also pick her brain with Google Slides on how she used Google Slides for her science lessons.
Nice.
Really great. Were there any other questions before we wrap up? All right. I know this is my NMDELT email, but I'm also going to put my ABQ ALC email in the chat because I tend to see that one a lot faster. So if you have any questions as you're going through the G Suite apps, you can use either email address. I am happy to answer your questions. And thank you all so much. This has been a really great group. I'm very excited that you guys came on and we had a really great conversation. And good luck with, all of your Google fun. I love Google. I really do. So thank you all so much. I'm going to stop the recording.